Hi there, I hope that you have been well. Welcome to this channel. If you're new here, please go ahead and subscribe, put your notifications bell on so that you can get notified for each and every one of the videos that I post on this channel. This channel is about nutrition, study abroad, scholarships, etc, and all the good stuff that come about with it, so you don't want to miss any one of them really whenever I post a video. So today's video is about some things that we need to normalize in 2022 about diet culture. And if you're new to this channel, I love to talk about diet culture a lot, especially even on my social media pages, whether that's on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, and so on and so forth. So if you do not know what is diet culture? So diet culture is a way that idealizes a certain type of way that we need to look, or a certain type of way that we need to actually consume food for us to maintain that healthy lifestyle. So diet culture has us twisted in so many ways that I cannot even begin to stipulate on this channel, because there are quite a number. So today's video is just a few tips for you to normalize in 2022, and I know that we are already in the middle of December, so which means that we're just about to indulge into festivity mode and consuming lots of food, and sometimes you might feel very guilty about it by the end of December. And come 1st of January, we want to set new goals, new life, new me, new body, all these kind of things. We want to set a goal to lose weight, and sometimes we find ourselves that we find a social media looking type of diet a way to begin, and change our lifestyles, or maybe lose weight, or whatever it is that we really want to do. So we get into this diet, and 1 week later we're like, oh my god, I cannot do this, it's not sustainable, I'm feeling so hungry, I have zero energy, I really don't know what is going on. And then come the following week, you begin something else that, within a day or two, it's over, and it goes on and on and on. And you do this for 12 months. It's a vicious cycle. You're not finding yourself any results. You're just, wondering what exactly is happening. So one of the things that we need to normalize in 2022 is about how we perceive health. So how we look does not necessarily equate to health. So whether someone is slim or someone is looking a little plump, this does not mean that they are quote unquote healthy or unhealthy. So this is something that we need to normalize, to be able to accept ourselves. When you look in the mirror, really do not necessarily see what you need to change in terms of weight. You need to come to a place where you understand your health better, and your health in this case goes down into your mental health. It goes down into how you are actually feeling and how you're relating with food, honestly speaking. It also goes down into going to a doctor's checkup, going to do that blood work. You might be even deficient in a mineral or a vitamin that is very crucial, and you do not know, and that could be the reason as to why you're feeling the way you're feeling, such kind of things. This is the epitome of health, knowing exactly what is going deep down in our bodies, and not just necessarily looking at a mirror, how we look on a mirror, and we go by that, and we go by what the weighing scale says, and how we are tending to look like in the eye of the society, and we feel as if this is not good, this is not good for us, this is something that actually weighs us down. So one of the things that we need to normalize in 2022 is definitely to ensure that we come to a place that we love how we are. If we need to make some changes, then personalize those changes. Do not just necessarily go to a social media page for someone you've been following. Maybe it's an influencer, a wellness influencer, quote unquote, a wellness influencer that has been posting their anecdotal evidence, and their anecdotal evidence is what they might be doing within maybe a week or 2 weeks, or whatever it is, the timeline that they have been doing it, and they're showing it that, hey, this is the gospel truth towards health. Don't fall for that. ensure that you can be able to get your own personal way of doing things, you know, and achieving your own health. And health is not necessarily just losing weight, because that is what we think about when we think about you know, getting healthy. It's not about losing weight. Your life purpose is not losing weight, and that is something that we really need to get to a place of understanding, that our life purposes are way much bigger than how we actually look. And when we realize that, then we will not go ahead commenting on people's weights. You know, you do not use weight as a greeting, and it's okay, really. So this is something that we need to normalize in 2022, that do not use weight as a greeting. Really, this is something that I also talk about on my social media, on my Instagram especially. And I guess this is a time where we also need to realize that we all go through certain phases, and women might be going through certain weight phases depending on maybe their hormones, depending on the physiological changes that might be occurring in their bodies. And it's so easy to look in the mirror and down yourself just because of how you look, and you think that this is not a societal ideal, and then you begin going on such an extreme restrictive diet or maybe extreme exercise that you're not even enjoying, just because you want to achieve a certain type of way that you need to look. This is not your mission, honestly. You know, as much as, yes, if you want to make some changes, go ahead and make those changes, but also realize that really what you need to focus more on is how healthy you are. Really, are you well mentally? Are you treating the root cause of the reason as to why you might not be feeling well about yourself? Or are you just looking in the mirror and going into a restrictive certain type of way so that you can be able to appease the society? That is something that you really need to deal with as an individual. Okay, so in that breath, another thing that we need to normalize is to definitely unfollow some social media accounts that do not necessarily purport our journeys. So for example, maybe you've been following this wellness influencer once again, and you think that, hey, what they're doing is the gospel truth, and it might not actually be the gospel truth. So, you know, it might not be working for you. So, and you might be feeling a little pressure whenever you see a photo they've posted and you're like, I want to look like that. I want to be like her. I want to go through what she went through so that I can look like how she's posted. And maybe this person might be going through another myriad of things that you have no idea about. So it's time to unfollow that social media account that does not influence you in the right direction according to where you are in your health journey. And again, health is not just losing weight. So unfollow that social media account. Do not feel guilty about unfollowing them. This will give you a whole huge freedom, out of your own way in terms of what you see, because what you see is what you perceive, and over time these images are stuck in your head, and if you do not achieve a certain type of image, then you tend to beat yourself. That is actually not necessarily the correct way of doing things. So normalize unfollowing social media accounts and not feeling guilty about them. I cannot stress that enough. In fact, every single one of the people that I work with, this is something that I actually ask them, you know, what's the reason as to why you actually began maybe feeling a little bad about yourself? Is it because of a social media account? Is it because you know, you feel that you're not living up to the societal expectations? What exactly happened? Okay, now another thing that we need to normalize come 2022 is obviously not going into one diet after the other. And most of us really usually think that, hey, we need a certain type of new way to consume food for us to become healthy. So it is not necessarily true. So diet culture has us thinking that a certain type of way, maybe going on keto, or maybe doing intermittent fasting, or maybe it's just a cutting of carbs all together. Really, it's going on a no wheat diet, it's going on a water fast, it's going on all these kind of things that keep on coming about, really, and they are over restrictive. And over time, the more we go on a diet, the more we become deficient of minerals and vitamins that we are not even aware of. And don't let me get started on the minerals and the deficiencies and the supplement world, because that's another next thing that we need to normalize. So ensure that you're not going on a vicious cycle. 1 week after the other, you're beginning something new because you think this is the new thing that needs to work on me. You know, you have to come into a place where you find your own balance, your balance that is usually dependent on the food security in your household. And food security goes into the accessibility, the affordability of the food, how you guys are using food within that household. You know, what are your needs, what are your energy needs? So this is very dependent on an individual. And if you can work with someone, a professional, to let you know exactly what you would need and the changes that you need to make, do that. Don't go on a frenzy because you heard this is working, you heard this other thing is working, you heard that doing all these kind of exercises is what is going to work. No, what exactly works for you? And are you enjoying it, or do you feel as if it's a punishment? Because that's the other thing that you need to normalize. Ensure that the journey you're on does not feel as if you're punishing yourself. Because again, it's not that you're supposed to feel, they say that no pain, no gain. And sometimes, you go on an exercise, you don't enjoy it. Every single other day, you're like, oh my God, I have to go to do that exercise again. No, look for something that you enjoy. What is the one physical activity that you enjoy and you would do it over and over and over and over again without necessarily feeling as if it's a major task? So normalize finding something that works for you and sticking to it as a lifestyle, and not necessarily something that has an expiry date. It's not a diet that you're going to go on a 2 weeks, fast, or 2 weeks challenge, and then after the challenge, oh my God, you're back to where you were before. What's that you're doing to yourself? It's something that's supposed to be for a lifestyle. It's not like, a 1 week thing, okay? And we all go through into this kind of frenzies, okay? So, normalize finding yourself, finding your own personal journey and sticking to it. And if you want to have some friends who can, hold you accountable, then that's fine. Do what is working for you. Okay. Now, another thing that we need to, of course, normalize is to think that, hey, we are super deficient of all these kind of minerals and vitamins, and of course, we are living through a pandemic. We are still within that pandemic, and I find so many people online saying that, hey, I've been taking these supplements, I've been taking this, I've been taking that. The one thing that I ask them is, did you go do a test to see whether you are even deficient of this particular supplement that you're thinking that you need to take all of a sudden just because you need to prevent yourself from COVID? So that's one thing that you need to answer yourself. All these pills that you're pumping yourself, you're popping pills day by day, just because you want to prevent yourself from getting a certain disease. The immune response, and I did a video about this, is not as simple as you think. It's quite a complicated structure, and you cannot necessarily start to suddenly boost your immunity to 500% so that you cannot get any type of disease. Your immune system is quite a complex thing to just boost overnight. So if you think that you might be deficient, the first thing that you might want to do is visit your general practitioner or your laboratory, whichever you prefer, really. Do some proper blood work. Find find out whether you are deficient from things like magnesium, vitamin D, zinc, all these kind of things. There are tests to actually do. So once you do these tests, then you can be able to know, hey, I'm deficient of this and this and this. And in that case, can you be able to actually get the natural form of the food that you might be deficient from, instead of just popping a pill? And I know some of these things, for example, if you're iron deficient, your general practitioner might put you on some iron drugs just because of the absorption and these kind of things. Do not just go and self-medicate yourself on a supplement just because you heard that this is a supplement that is going to maybe protect you from disease A, B, C, D, E, without necessarily checking with your own general practitioner or your own doctor or even a dietitian or nutritionist, really. So the first thing that you want to do is to not just pop pills, not just go to a supplement store and just buy some supplements just because. And have seen quite a number of people buying vitamin C, zinc, all these kind of things. I know the Black population, for example, is actually deficient of vitamin D, and usually it's because we do not necessarily get enough of the vitamin D from the food that we consume, which means that some of the cases in terms of getting that vitamin D supplement, it's actually very, very necessary, especially if you do not also bask a lot in the sunlight. So these are things that you need to first find out before you can self-medicate yourself. So normalize finding out what is your blood composition, what is going on inside your body, rather than self-medicating yourself and thinking that you're doing the right thing. You might be doing yourself a disservice. Some of these supplements, most of them actually are not regulated, which means that you do not necessarily know, what exactly does this pill have. You might not exactly know because it's not something that is regulated wherever you're buying it from. So normalize ensuring that you look into your blood composition first before you can self-medicate, into a supplement, into getting that vitamin C or zinc. I know, right? All right. So another thing that you of course need to normalize come 2022 is to ensure that you can come into a place where you realize the quality of the food that you're consuming. So when you consume food, it's not just, for satiety. Look at your plate, critically look at your plate. What does it contain? Because again, these are things that, nowadays we have things to do with mental health, and the quality of the food that we are consuming really affects our gut. And when our gut is affected, then this obviously affects our mental health, because our gut, for example, is responsible for 95% of neurotransmitters like serotonin. So if, for example, your gut is inflamed, this will mean that the levels of neurotransmitters like serotonin would be much, much lower, which affects your sleep, it affects your mood, it affects how you feel generally. It's not even just about how you look, it's just, of course, about how you feel. And this melts down into the quality of the food that you're consuming. So the quality of the food that you're consuming is not necessarily just when you look at your plate, how palatable that plate is. So for example, I come from Kenya, and most of the people actually consume, say for example, some fries with a piece of chicken just because it is better. But you're not getting enough of the nutrients, and you end up becoming deficient. You end up actually inflaming your gut, even with lots of saturated fat and lots of omega-6 that actually inflame you, and you're not consuming the ample nutrients that you need. And this is something we call as hidden hunger. So look at your plate critically. What are you consuming? Is it balanced? It's not just you're getting the carbohydrates, your protein, your fat. Are you also getting all the nutrients that you need? Are you getting the folate? Are you getting the iron? Are you getting the magnesium, the zinc? What exactly is on your plate? It's not just about the portion control. It's not just about looking at your plate and saying, hey, at least I have half of the plate with vegetables and the other quarter with carbohydrates and the other quarter with protein. But what exactly is composed of that carbohydrate? For example, are you consuming more of the processed carbohydrates, or are you consuming more from the complex carbohydrates? What exactly are you doing? What is the quality of this food? What is contained in that food that you're consuming? So normalize ensuring that you're consuming the correct quality of food. And sometimes you think that, you know, consuming the right quality of food is something that is quite expensive, but it's really from just the food that you consume every day and just switching one over the other. Right, so it can be, for example, maybe switching from the white flour chapatis to brown flour chapatis, and this is of course something that is quite cultural. Then, you know, you do not necessarily have to consume anything that is out of your culture. It's just what you may have been consuming and just switching one out of the other. And of course, you can work with a dietitian or a nutritionist to be able to understand exactly what you need to swap or change, right? And once you do that, then you understand food much better, and that is where you also normalize having a very good relationship with your food. Because again, having a good relationship with your food is what melts down into the choices that you make eventually. And you might have heard me speak about this a lot. What's the relationship that you have with food? And in fact, on Tuesdays, I run a trivia Tuesday where I talk about what's the relationship you have with food, A, B, C, D, E. And I get all manner of answers from all my followers on Instagram, which is actually so much fun. But the reason why I ask this is because all of us have a way we perceive certain kinds of food components. So for example, when an avocado is flashed on your screen, or when you see an avocado in the market, and there's a way you think about that avocado. Some people don't necessarily like avocados. Some people will be like, oh my god, I cannot do life without avocados. What is life without avocados, really? What is it? So there is what we call having or mending your relationship with food, you know, and how you associate certain type of food groups with certain emotions and certain moods, right? So for example, when we were born, when any infant is born, actually, they are born with what we call intuition, which means that, you know, once they are born, they cry whenever they are hungry, and they are fed by their moms. You know, if for example a mom is able to breastfeed, then they can be able to actually breastfeed this child. If for example they've chosen to give infant formula milk, then they definitely, you know, give them the infant formula milk. But usually, in most cases, you'll find that this infant is fed when they cry, when they ask for the food, you know, in most cases. And of course, there are outliers depending on the situation, but in most cases, this is what happens, right? And so this intuition usually somehow goes away when we, you know, are introduced into solid foods as infants, right? And so this is depending on the situation. Of course, you might find that some infants were introduced to solid foods at 4 months, others at 6 months. Really depends on the situation, right? And so once you begin that introduction into solid foods, your intuition could either, you know, be very well enhanced, or you might start associating certain kind of foods with certain moods. So for example, you might find that in some households, some infants might be given things like fried, you know, sausages or whatever it is, you know, for good behavior. Or for example, some infants might request for these kind of things when the parents go away, maybe to work, and they think that this is a reward for good behavior, or this is a reward that comes from their parents once they've gone through, you know, throughout the day, they've gone to work, they left the child alone, and they're going to bring back a certain reward for them, to be able to enjoy. And these are known as treats and that kind of thing, right? And so this child will definitely grow up knowing that a fried sausage is a way to treat myself. So every single time I feel bad about myself, or I feel good about myself, or I want to reward myself, then I will definitely go ahead and get myself a fried sausage. And this is what grows over time. And as an adult, then you possibly realize it much later, and you have to undo all these kind of things. How we relate with food really stems from how we were introduced into those solid foods. So again, of course, this goes down to the parents and the understanding of the food, and of course the food security of the household, how accessible the food is, how affordable it is, the culture that has been within that household as well. So these are things that also melt down into several other factors. But our intuition is either really enhanced or can be a little bit changed, depending on how we were introduced to solid food. And so once you realize that, then it's very good to think, and this is something that we need to normalize in 2022, that think about your intuition. What instills your thoughts about food, certain food components, when you see maybe certain breads, or when you see certain sweets. What exactly do you think? What is your trigger point? What do you feel when you consume certain kind of foods as opposed to others? And what gives you the decision, or what draws the decision to buying certain food components when you go to your supermarket or your grocery store as opposed to others? Is there any certain way, or is there any certain guiding factor that, the reason as to why you buy white bread as opposed to brown bread, or the reason as to why you go to the grocery store and you're buying maybe some cereals, or you're buying some very processed items, or you're buying some less processed items on the other hand? What exactly drives the decision as to what you buy and end up having in your household? Because you do not consume what you don't buy. You only consume what you actually buy. So that's one thing to also think about as an individual, or as a household. What necessarily draws you into the conclusion that this is what I'm going to consume in my household, and this is what I'm going to not consume in my household? I think about this and I think that it is wrong, or what exactly drives that decision? And then, once you normalize understanding food and understanding the nutrients within that food component, then you mend the relationship that you might be having with food. And this is something that we also need to normalize come 2022. So nutrition is not as complicated, really. It's really just the ABC of what you have been consuming and just tweaking things here and there. And I know we all go through these kind of things. Personally, I also go through into a frenzy because I'm human first, really. And this is another thing that we also need to maybe normalize come 2022. Not looking at health professionals and judging them so harshly just because of how they might be looking. This person, remember, is an individual as well. This person is also going through maybe hormonal imbalances, is also going through some certain mental issues. They might be going through it in their households. They might, of course, maybe, having a difficult time, also having a very good relationship with their food, and so on and so forth. So this is another thing that you need to normalize in 2022. Their knowledge does not necessarily equate to how they look. The same way that sometimes we go to a doctor and the doctor might not necessarily look into the societal image that we might be having in our heads, and yet we let them treat us. We let them speak into what is ailing us, maybe. So that is another thing that we need to normalize, not overjudging people just because they're in certain professions, right? And our society needs to heal from that. And once you heal from diet culture, then really you heal your relationship with food, you heal how you look at healthy living and healthy lifestyle and all these kind of things that are bombarded to you on the media, whether that's on social media, whether that's on a TV program that you actually watch. What exactly works for you? Answer that. And once you answer that, then you are in a freedom. You're in a food freedom where you are able to understand food much better, and you do not necessarily feel guilty just because maybe you indulged over the over the next 2 weeks, or you know, you indulged and went to a party and all these kind of things. Remember, it's not what you did on one day that counts. It's what you do every other single day, right? So normalize that. And I hope this video, this pep talk, has been of help to you. And once again, I'm gonna leave it at that. Hopefully I should be able to post other videos from next year and do more and have such kind of talks. And of course, please feel free to share this video. Leave a comment down below. Let me know, how has your health lifestyle journey, as they call it on the social media, how has it been really, and how are you feeling? And if, for example, you need any type of assistance, you need to speak to me or consult with me, please ensure that you can leave a comment down below, or I will leave details on how to book a consultation with me on the description box. Please be sure to look into that. I also do have a very good 52 meal planner, or what I ate in a day really, and a shopping list as well, and is selling on Amazon. So I will leave the comment on the comment section below, and you can be able to check it out, and of course support this channel really, depending on how you feel. Really, I am Nduta Wambura on all my social media handles. Feel free to reach out for a consult. And again, I want to wish you a very happy holiday wherever you are in this world. Please ensure that you give yourself that freedom to enjoy with your family. And until next time, subscribe. Bye.